And joining us now at the top of hour number 3 is our longtime friend and creator and owner of Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio, joining us here on the Rich Eisen Show. Are you in your kitchen now and you're in your bar? Is this the famed Florio bar, not the office? What do we have, Mike? What do we got here? Oh, I don't hear him. You got it there?
You got me?
There we go. Yeah, where are you? Yeah, I hear you.
Hello?
I hear you.
McFly?
I hear you. McFly is here. Where are you right now, Mike? Where are you?
I'm in West Virginia in my house.
Okay.
Let's just leave it at that.
Okay.
This is I'm just messing around. There's no famous bar. There's a barn that has a bar in it.
Okay.
I do some stuff down there every once in a while. I had been doing stuff out of my office, but I felt like I needed to change a venue. I'm back down in our wine cellar.
Nice.
I know that sounds very fancy.
No,
we don't have much
great.
wine in it.
Dude, that's awesome. Tu salud.
Yeah.
I just thought you might want to make drinks for all the Eagles and Dallas Cowboy fans that need it right now,
There's
Mike.
plenty back here. I think it wouldn't last very long. But yes, there's plenty back here from the holidays still. This is the satellite bar. We got the bar in the basement. This was the extra satellite bar that my son kind of commandeered over the holidays. And then we got the bar down in the barn.
Love it, Mike. Fantastic. So obviously I'd love to start with the Eagles and the Cowboys, but I do want to place them aside because I did text you over the weekend when I saw what you were saying on one of the many NBC pregame shows from this past weekend with 3 games in the family of networks and streamers about Mike Tomlin. What do you make of his exit stage left that ended his press conference yesterday, Mike?
Well, I think that it's important to understand the background of all of this. And here's what I said on Saturday night at halftime of the Browns-Texans game. Mike Tomlin, every year after the season ends, he's all in, and then it ends, and he takes a step back, and he reassesses. This year is unique, Rich, because for the first time ever, he's entering the last year of his contract. He's never had to get to this point. The Steelers have always extended him before he's entering contract year. So that changes things. It's unique. It's different. So he will talk to his family, as he always does, and then he'll make a decision about the future. And the options, as I see it, are sign an extension because the Steelers, we reported a couple of weeks ago before the Bengals-Steelers game on NBC, Steelers want to extend him. That's option 1. Option 2, leave now and see if anyone calls and makes Art Rooney an offer he won't refuse for Tomlin to take over somewhere immediately. Do the Sean Payton sabbatical year and have someone trade for him as a practical matter next year, or decide I'm not going to accept an extension. I'm going to finish my contract, and I'm going to do something that head coaches rarely do in the NFL, which is become a free agent. And so if he's thinking about even the possibility of coaching out his contract and becoming a free agent, I think what he did last night was a message to all reporters. If you ask me about my contract in any way, shape, or form between now and the end of next season, I'm just going to leave. I'm just gone. And it'll be interesting to see if anyone has the nerve to ask him about it when he does his end-of-season press conference, because my guess would be if someone does, and I don't think anyone will ask, but if someone does, he'll just leave. I think that was the message he was sending last night. That's my theory, but it's based on the background that I just laid out.
So he's leaving because why? He just doesn't want to talk about it, or
you can't compartmentalize the two. You can't start talking about your contract while you're all in with the Steelers. And he's famous for saying we want volunteers, not hostages. And he has signed up to be a volunteer through the end of next season. After that, he's free to go volunteer somewhere else. And I don't think he just even wants to start down that path. He doesn't want to, because it would have been easy to say, I'm going to be the Steelers coach as long as they want me. It would have been easy to say, I look forward to signing an extension. It would have been easy to say, I have no intention of ever leaving. I've been here since 2007. All I had to do was say that, and it's over. He didn't say that, so it's not over. So now we wait to see what he decides to do after talking to his family. He could sign that extension, and it would be done. But I think by walking off in a roundabout way, that message is sent. If you raise this with me before I make my decision, or even if my decision is coach out my contract and become a free agent, you're wasting your time. Press conference over, I'm gone.
So, and the reason why I also bring it up, not only because of your insight that I heard you say over the weekend, but anything's possible, man. I've never seen a coaching carousel like the one that we are seeing spinning off its axis and rolling down the street. Because Belichick is out there and Vrabel is out there and my college coach Jim Harbaugh is out there. Pete Carroll, if you're interested, is out there. I mean, so on and so forth. So it makes sense to throw Mike Tomlin's name in the mix. Is there any way one of the NFC East teams that got one and done, and not only that, but neither team even held a lead in getting one and done in the wild card weekend. Either one of those teams, maybe because of who's out there, willing to blow up their current situation?
I'm going to rewind again by 3, 4, 5 weeks when we didn't know what the Patriots were going to do. And I think the end of the season, the way that it concluded, was one of the big factors. That they had gone on a tear and they had won 4 in a row to finish up, maybe things would have been different. But once the idea began to be even discussed, entertained, considered in New England, one of the realities that the Patriots were facing was a fear, or at least a concern, a realization that if they move on from Bill Belichick and they set this up where he can go anywhere he wants, there's a chance he goes straight to Dallas if Mike McCarthy fails to get the Cowboys back to the NFC Championship again. And that streak continues. It's amazing. First 30 Super Bowls, 16 times the Cowboys played in the game to get to the Super Bowl. Since then, 28 years, 0. That streak obviously continues, and that's what opens the door to Jerry Jones possibly saying, I'm going to reset. Mike McCarthy has 1 year left on his contract as well. I'm going to move on. Bill Belichick is available. You know, a lot of times we overcomplicate things. I think this is pretty simple. One of the great coaches of all time is available for anyone who wants him. How does that not become a factor in how you assess your current coach, especially if you have a playoff-ready roster that you can dangle for that coach? It's one thing to think about the non-playoff teams where there would be some sort of a rebuild. You got Bill Belichick walking right in and taking over the Cowboys, or maybe the Eagles after what happened last night and after what happened the final 7 games of the season. I think after they got beat by the 49ers, they kind of checked out a little bit. They realized it's not our year. And Coach Nick Sirianni never properly snapped them out of it. And it just continued. And I think we're on Mike McCarthy watch in Dallas, and we're on Nick Sirianni watch in Philly. And whether or not a move's made is going to be potentially influenced by whether or not the owners think they could be the one to land Bill Belichick.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Jerry Jones is known for sticking with his guy. And Lurie, you know, as we all know, read the room fast about Chip Kelly, got him out. And then 2 years after Doug Peterson wins a Super Bowl, he's gone. So wouldn't you say that that is the spot where a change might actually happen, even though that sounds crazy for a team that was 10-1?
I think both are possible. Both are possible, but obviously only one can get Bill Belichick. And who knows, maybe this uncertainty inspires Arthur Blank to make ridiculous promises to Bill Belichick to get him to take that job instead. I'll give you full control of the team. I'll give you more money than you've ever made in your entire life. Who knows? But between the two, something's got to change. And both, you can argue something's got to change. And with Philly, the easy argument is, hey, Nick Sirianni's gone to the playoffs 3 straight years, in 3 years on the job. Went to the Super Bowl last year, had the better team, was ahead, could have won it this year, 10-1 before it fell apart. No way you make a change. Let's go back 9 years. After the Broncos lost in the playoffs at home to the Colts in the divisional round, and the late Demaryius Thomas told me a couple of weeks after that, there were guys in the locker room for the Broncos that game that didn't want to go to New England next week for the AFC Championship game, and they got their wish. So the Colts beat them in the division round a year after they went to the Super Bowl. 4 years of John Fox, 4 playoff appearances for John Fox. John Elway fired him because Elway wanted to see the team go out kicking and screaming. There was no kicking and screaming last night from the Eagles. So the precedent's there. As ridiculous as it sounds on the surface, the precedent's there for change. And we saw Jeffrey Lurie last night. I'd like to think of a good adjective for the facial expression, because it was kind of a cocktail of various different mindsets and emotions fused into one. It was stupefied. It was shocked. It was angry. It was like 7 different things melded into one, but it wasn't the kind of look that is a good one for Nick Sirianni.
Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's your reporting on my college coach who was out interviewing with the Chargers Monday? What do you have?
Well, again, we got to rewind in order to understand what happens going forward. He thought 2 years ago when he packed up, the day before letter of intent day and went to Minnesota to interview for the vacant head coaching job with the Vikings, he thought he was getting it. And he didn't. Last year, he wanted the Chargers job. That was my understanding a year ago. He wanted that job, but obviously it didn't come open. The Broncos interviewed him at a time when it wasn't 100% certain they were going to hire Sean Payton. So Greg Penner, the CEO of the team, flew to Ann Arbor to meet with Harbaugh then. This time around, the team he was very interested in coaching last year has interviewed him. The question becomes how many other teams decide to pursue Harbaugh? And does he work out a deal to stay with Michigan? The reporting from Dan Wetzel of Yahoo from earlier today about the Michigan negotiations, that's kind of ominous to me. It sounds like Harbaugh is making a request there's no way Michigan can comply with, which makes it easier for him to feel like he's walking away with a clear conscience. This is the year for him to go back to the NFL. He's won his college championship. He's said that he's got unfinished business in the NFL, and he's going to have maximum leverage and presumably maximum interest. When you look at what he did with the 49ers, you look at what he's done with Michigan, how do you not at least have interest in talking to Jim Harbaugh and possibly bringing him in? Because he's going to turn around a bad team quickly. That's exactly what he did with the 49ers.
Well, I mean, put your legal hat on and explain, if you don't mind, to my viewers and listeners, the exact conundrum. What is it? Indemnification if the NCAA comes in and smacks down Michigan based on something Jim should have known but didn't know with Connor Stallions. What is exactly that legal, best you know, issue that is kind of holding up that you say Michigan could never agree to, is what you're saying?
Here it is, as best I understand it, based on Dan Wetzel's reporting.
Yes.
Harbaugh wants immunity against being fired for any type of NCAA sanction that might be imposed based on the multiple pending investigations. Now, if he just wants to be guaranteed his money, that's one thing. They could easily agree to that. Fine. If we have to let you go for cause because of something the NCAA concludes, we'll still pay you to not coach the team. If he wants a guarantee he's still going to be the coach, that's problematic, because what the NCAA does, Rich, they issue to schools and to the coach what they call a show cause order, which means if you are going to either continue to employ or hire this coach during the term of the show cause order, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, you've got to show cause to the NCAA. In other words, you've got to justify, you've got to explain to the NCAA why they shouldn't come down on you right now and punish you aggressively right now for touching this guy that they've essentially blackballed. It's a fancy way of blackballing someone that the NCAA has used many times over the years. So if they attach a show cause order to Jim Harbaugh, Michigan's got to fire him. Otherwise, the NCAA is going to come down on Michigan like the NCAA maybe hasn't come down on a football program since SMU. Not that it would go that far, but their hands are tied once there's a show cause order. So if he's looking for a guarantee he's not going to be prevented from coaching, I don't think Michigan can agree to that.
Well, I mean, and again, but you also have to understand if Jim has, I guess, the ability, or Jim is wondering if the NCAA is on the up and up with him anyway. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't.
I'd want out if I were him. The NCAA is an inherently corrupt organization, and in my opinion, and I would want out. The whole structure is a device for allowing the various member organizations to engage in blatant antitrust violations by refusing to compensate players, and for decades refusing to let them even go make money off of their own name, image, and likeness. It's inherently corrupt, in my opinion. I don't want to get me sued or you sued, but I can understand why Jim Harbaugh would want nothing to do with any NCAA member institution after what he's gone through the past couple of years.
Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen Show. Where's Vrabel? What's going on with him? I mean, I'd want to hire him, you know, and again, he'd be on my list.
Well, absolutely. And over the weekend, we posted an item that was a very preliminary based on what I was hearing, kind of a match game of who goes where. The Raiders and Vrabel makes sense. Albert Breer pointed out last week the relationship between Tom Brady and Mike Vrabel. Tom Brady's still got a pending deal to buy part of the Raiders. That may never get approved, but still Brady's involved with the Raiders. The betting markets have shown Vrabel creeping up the stack as one of the favorites to be the Seahawks coach. Now, over the weekend, Dan Quinn was the favorite, but I don't know how you sell Dan Quinn to any fan base after giving up 48 points to the Packers and Jordan Love on Sunday. If I'm Mike Vrabel, I'm waiting to see what happens in Pittsburgh. That's a place that drafted him. You know, we had assumed he was going to potentially land in New England, where he won a couple of Super Bowls. Pittsburgh drafted him, and I'd also want to wait and see what happens in Kansas City. That's where he finished his playing career. And if Andy Reid retires after the season, and he said last week he's given no thought to it whatsoever, I think there's reason to believe the Chiefs are at least, you know, putting on the radar screen the possibility of it happening based on how this postseason goes. If Reid walks away, hey, there's only one team out there that's got Patrick Mahomes. And if I'm Mike Vrabel, I want to see if there's a chance there before I would commit anywhere else. But Pittsburgh, he just seems like the perfect Steelers coach if Mike Tomlin would decide to move on.
I'm with you, man. I'm stunned that they just fired him. I mean, you had an interesting post as well. I think I reached out to you as well about ownership in the NFL and whether some people are ready for it. I'll give you the floor. Honestly, I'll give. It's kind of it's kind of a third rail, but go for it, Mike. Go for it. I don't.
Yeah, it's. I guess it's more of a third rail for you than me because I don't work for them.
I got it.
But I'm only one step removed.
But
Trust me.
I'm giving you the floor on my show.
I appreciate it, and I respect you for it. Look, if you want to drive a car, and this is where the judge would say, "I hope you're going somewhere with this, counselor." if you want to drive a car, you've got to go take 2 tests. Mm-hmm. You've got to go prove in writing that you're qualified, and then you got to get behind the wheel and you got to do it to the satisfaction of the examiner. To own an NFL franchise, there's no requirement whatsoever. There's no test that you take. You just need to either have enough money that you're the high bidder to buy the team. You don't have to know anything about football. You just have to have cash. Or you have to have the right DNA or the right marriage relationship. It's either family or marriage that gets you in a position where you inherit a team when someone dies. And there's no guarantee that the person who inherits the team, and we've seen it throughout the league, it's more common than not that you've got teams managed by people who didn't buy them. Not that the person who buys them has any qualifications in the first place, but this team passes around within the family member to family member. Inevitably, it's going to land in the lap of somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. And my point is, none of them have any objective qualifications to do it. And I know that the approach that I've suggested as an alternative wouldn't be perfect, but look at Green Bay, where you have a corporation, where you have a CEO. Mark Murphy didn't just roll out of bed one day and become the CEO of the Packers. He earned it. He's proven that he's qualified to run an NFL organization. If all of these teams became corporations and had CEOs and boards of director and shareholders, there would be a lot more accountability. Jed York once said you can't fire an owner. If they were all corporations, you could fire the CEO. And some fan bases, Rich, and I'm not going to name names, they're just stuck until the current owner sells it or dies. There's nothing you can do. And it's one dysfunctional mess after another. The Commanders fans lived through it until Daniel Snyder finally cashed in. That's what fascinates me, because I look at a coach like Mike Vrabel and I say, if you know what you're doing, all due respect to Amy Adams-Strunk, if you know what you're doing, you work it out with Mike Vrabel. You don't get upset because he said nice things about the Patriots when he was inducted into the team's Hall of Fame, and you're miffed because by implication he was saying bad things about the Titans. You work it out with a great head coach and you keep him around as long as possible. That's one of the great flaws. And it's one of the things that makes it so fascinating, Rich, covering the NFL. You've got basically mom and pop operations that are worth $10 billion. It's incredible to cover it and to opine about it and to touch the third rail or, jump on it with both feet.
Well, again, becoming commissioner isn't, Roger Goodell didn't inherit it. He's a CEO of the company and, does such a great job of it when he's got 32 other owners who might have been in the position that you're just saying. And I just said that to try and make sure I'm in good shape.
But that's
after
the great
giving
difference.
You the floor
that's a great
on
difference.
That,
Okay, imagine if the NFL, the entire NFL was family owned like all the teams, and the commissioners just handed down to this cousin or that son or this spouse or this. It's ridiculous if you think of it that way. I mean, take a step back. This is ridiculous, but it's what we're left with.
Well, it's in all sports, too, for sure. Tell me about your book, Father of Mine. We haven't spoken about that in a while. How's that going?
This was the mob novel that came out last April. The price has been slashed, not really slashed, $4.99 to $3.99 ebook. Nice. That's not a huge bump, but it's still $2 cheaper per month than Peacock. So, not to go towards that third rail.
There you go, buddy. Yes. Okay.
And Peacock is a great value for $5.99. It is a far better value for $5.99 than my book is for $3.99. There is an immense library of shows and movies, and you could have seen the Dolphins-Chiefs game, and hopefully did. I saw people saying on Sunday that they canceled Peacock one day after they got it. It's like, well, you idiots. You had 29 more days to watch The Office, to watch this, to watch that. Like, why are you throwing it away? Anyway,
we got it.
It was supposed to be a pitch for Father of Mine, but I ended up making a pitch for my
$3.99 on ebook.
Instead.
$3.99 on ebook. Father of Mine. All right, Mike. Thanks for the time. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Rich.
Take care.
Buddy.
That's Mike Florio, everybody. Pro Football Talk. There you go. Father of Mine. Order now. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.